I have an example of a long green candle the next day, and it's very much like a gap up situation. And I wanted to explain those conditions to you in this particular situation. I'm in my normal setup with three daily charts. In the middle area, we have the vertical pink line on the day before the big long green candle. And that candle goes up just a little over $3, I believe. And I'll begin by showing you the trend chart. In the trend chart here, we have trend red and trend gray that have crossed under zero. And trend green is down touching the yellow trend line. And so that is a classic definition of trend red and gray in the, I refer to it as the fifth line, or the down touch under zero line. In the down touch category, the trend red, green, and gray can down touch the three trio lines, trend yellow, pink, and blue, or zero, or they can go down under zero. If they go down under zero, then they do it on the same day that they cross under zero, and that next day is a reversal back up. Occasionally you'll see trend red or one of the other lines cross just barely under zero, and then you'll there'll be a second day of a possible red candle. Oftentimes it has a long upper tail, so it could have been a green, but then it got pushed back down by the end of the day. This candle that I'm referring to right here is like that, but the situation is not exactly that. In other words, right here in the down touch pattern category of the three gap patterns down, the down touches that we have are actually a triple. Gray and red are under zero, and green is down touching yellow. If you go down to the power chart to examine the power 4, I'll expand this out a little bit, and you can see that the power pink, blue, yellow, and white are the power 4, and the fifth line that we watch in the proximity group is the power Zion. And possibly you've heard me say before, when Zip Zion is under orange and the power 4 are all above orange, you can get a stronger movement up. And this is a typical example of that, but you don't usually see the huge movement up like you do here. There are about 17 identical indicators, and they are in a TOC 2-day pattern, which means an up, down, down pattern. And when you have the three gap patterns, the identical patterns, the down touch patterns, and the proximity group patterns in good conditions, they then usually give us a gap up. And in fact, if you go over here to the trend chart, you will see that there are three lines that are 3 days down. This is typical for a bottlenose reaction, that we would have a bottlenose pattern somewhere. But I point this out because you have 17 in one identical pattern and 3 in another identical pattern, which makes it basically a 2-pattern group with 20 out of the 22 market force recognition indicators showing support. And so really all of these conditions together would dictate a gap up, not a long green candle. But that's again, you've possibly heard me say that sometimes you get strong movements of a long green candle or a gap up. Sometimes you'll get 2 days of really big green candles, or even 3 days. But occasionally you'll get a day where it's just a dud. The price movement is extremely minimal. You might get a doji candle that almost opens and closes at the same price, and then the day after that is when you get the big movement, either a big green candle or a gap up. And so, though, that's the ideas behind what I see in the three situations. You also have other patterns I'll point out also, and that is like on the pink green line here in the zip chart, you're looking at a red spike, which is by definition red under 50 going down and yellow above 50 going down. And that particular situation is what we normally always see in a red spike. And keep in mind, all of these are reversal patterns. I'm going to move the vertical line over one just to show you. I did a previous video on red spikes in which the zip green was at 100 and zip red went down. This actually, 2 days before the gap up, this actually qualifies for a red spike. No, normally you would say, hey, this does, but I mean 99.9% of the time you never see a red spike with zip green at 100, because there's a lot of people staying in the market, and yet the price or the zip red line went way down. Zip red actually went from 87 to the pink vertical line day to 21, so it dropped over 60 points, and that's that's a nice what we would say is a nice red spike. Obviously, if you bought it on this day, the following day it would go down, but you would probably recognize that you were in another red spike and you could hang on to it, and then you'd have your nice green candle the second day. So you shouldn't get hurt even if you didn't see that particular issue about red spikes. So lots of information on what different indicators do. This is just another example. This happens to be a classic. I mean, everything here in the three gap up patterns were there for a gap up, but it did not gap up. But it did go up $3, so that's pretty much the same thing. But that's that's the little what do I want to say? The little conditions that you find within the movements that we see. We can tell which direction they're going to go. We just sometimes can't tell how long it will take to get there, especially when you have some just dynamite conditions inside all of the three patterns that make up the three gap patterns, which are basically our definition for gaps up. You got to have those three patterns at the same time in the stock, and when you have those three patterns, then there's some kind of combined forces that in the marketplace that occur at the same time, and they just really drive the price up. Normally in a gap, but in this case in a big green candle. So hope you are enjoying the videos. I really encourage you to look at the system that you have in comparison to what we have here, because on the internet you'll hear people tell you about, they trade gaps, and what they normally do is they just wait for something to gap down really far or up really far, and then they say, well, let's trade it. And that's not what we do. We can identify the gaps before the gap occurs, and that's through the knowledge that we have through the sensitive indicators and the formula power, the patterns, the conditions, and the signals. Keep in mind the three combined patterns. You can't record them on an indicator line. You can't see them, except that if you see the three movements or setups together, then there is an additional power there that causes a gap up, and that's we refer to it as a combined power, or whatever you might want to think of it as. But that ability is what day trading visual basics is all about. The system is built on identifying reversal patterns and cycle changes. We pick the bottoms and the tops of cycles, and the whole system is designed to do that. So look around. Hope you have a chance to look at more videos. The system is $179 a month if you're not familiar with that. We also have an email system for those that would rather get some support in that area. But we hope you will become familiar with the system so that you recognize when the market forces are making the push, when the strength is there. The whole thing comes through strength. We can see the market force push before it happens, and it's in the indicator line lengths. When you have a BOC higher pattern, that's a ABC pattern, a V-shaped pattern, and when the right leg is higher or longer than the left leg, that leg line length is longer, or identifying that the push is going to be stronger. And so that tells us that if it's at the bottom of a cycle, it tells us that we could have a nice uptrend or just a couple days movement. If the BOC higher pattern is on a peak, then the strong push up is usually an over buy, resulting in a next day down price. So depends on where you're at in the cycle, but there you can see the strength of the market force in the indicator line length. And that's one condition that we knew we just had to have, we had to recognize. We knew it had to be there in order to have a great system. It took us a long time to figure it out, but we've successfully done that. And we hope you enjoy the system. We are really amazed at what it can do, and if you'll continue to look at more videos, we know you will be amazed as well.